What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk with Mr. Ghost. Before we get into today's episode, I need you guys to do me a quick favor. Make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button, turning on your notifications, and simply liking and sharing this episode. See, that engagement is how this message reaches more people who truly care about the truth, law, and accountability. And what we're going to be talking about today is not a conspiracy. There's not going to be a partisan noise. And this is something that we cannot afford to ignore no longer. Because this time, the words and the coordination and what's happening within our society has turned deadly twice over. But I like to take a biblical lens in what we're seeing unfold before our eyes. Because I find when you live your life according to a biblical lens, you start seeing the world a lot clearer for what's to come. Excuse me. But anyways, in Second Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, this known also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to their parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. So what is this telling us, guys? The Apostle Paul warns us that in the last days, perilous times shall come. He's not talking about a foreign invasion. He's talking about the moral collapse of our society from within. So Paul describes a society that is obsessed with self, money, pleasure, and power. People that are arrogant, ungrateful, disobedient, without natural affection, and they're hostile to what is good. They'll call what is good evil, then they'll call what's evil good. And here's the most dangerous part. He says that many will still look religious, having the form of godliness, but denying the power that actually transforms life. And this is not ancient history, that's modern culture, and at times even nominal Christianity. Paul's instructions are very clear. Recognize it, don't normalize it, and hold fast to the truth instead of being swept away into decay. So I will say this, and I'll say this once again. So turn to Jesus, accept Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, turn away from that sin, and follow Him. That means you pick up your cross and you change your life. And you will see a true follower of Christ as they change. So remember in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33, for God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. Jesus is the only way to heaven. And I believe that Jesus is returning. So it's time to get right with God. I know many people are going to say, well, you're a Jesus nut. Well, I'd rather be a Jesus nut than be of this world. Because at the end of the day, I know for a fact Jesus is returning, and I'm looking forward to that day. But what we're seeing on our streets right now, guys, isn't always organic outrage. And that's why that the people need to wake up. History has shown us that chaos doesn't have this spontaneous to be effective. At the same slogans appear everywhere, when crowds are mobilizing instantly, when messaging is coordinated and amplified at the exact same time, that is not a coincidence, that is an organization. These are paid activists, professional agitators, and influence networks don't exist to protect our policies. That exist to sow doubt, fraction our trust, and make Americans question their own institutions and each other. The goal isn't justice, the goal is confusion, and a confused nation is far easier to destabilize than a unified one. So yesterday it came out, what came out looks very different from the usual chaos we've been seeing happening within Minneapolis. There's an op-ed that has surfaced laying out what a far left network that didn't just protest, but escalated, coordinated, and allegedly put Alex Preedy in harm's way. Not just Alex, it put Renee Good as well. and turning both of these people into martyrs. See, according to this investigative reporter, this isn't just a random street activism. What we're talking about here is organized groups, openly identified as Marxist, Leninist, and socialist idiots in our country. And they're operating in Minneapolis and beyond. These groups with guides and guides on how to track federal agents, how to harass them, how to avoid detection, and how to keep what they literally are calling a strike against the United States inside what they describe as the belly of the beast. That's their language, not mine. So the real question is simple. Who is behind this network? Who's funding it? And when does the protest cross the line into organized insurgency? Let's take a look at the interview, and I'll give you my full concise at the end.
Now, take a look at this op-ed. Quote, "The far-left network that helped put Alex Preddy in harm's way then made him a martyr." Azra Nomani wrote that, and she joins me now. Azra, who is in this far-left network and who funds them?
Yes, Stu, just like you just heard from the streets of Minneapolis, there is a far left network that is escalating its activities against the federal government. And in this network are self-described socialist, Marxist, Leninists, terms that we might not have thought we would hear today, but they are indeed on the streets. They have guides on how to track, monitor, and harass these federal agents. They have got guides on how to avoid detection and how to basically keep this strike against the U.S. in the, quote, belly of the beast to destroy the empire, as they call the United States.
So who funds this network?
So what's really important to know is that right after the killing, there was an escalation of their activity where they put protesters out on the streets. Who were these groups? They were people like the People's Forum, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and they put their word out through a propaganda network called Breakthrough News. It's all those organizations are funded by an American-born billionaire living in Shanghai named Neville Roy Singham. He's already under investigation by congressional leaders for alleged intervention and interference in the U.S. domestic politics. It's really serious business that's happening right now.
What this network is doing is surely not legal. Some of the protests and the measures they're taking against ICE, I can't believe they're legal. Has there been any arrest of any members of this network?
Well, what's really important is that Kash Patel has announced that he is going to be investigating this network that has been communicating via Signal. Signal is where they sent many of their first responders, their rapid responders, as they call themselves, to the donut shop before the killing happened Saturday morning. There was a Signal chat that ICE agents were at that donut shop and that people needed to descend on the donut shop. And that's when this tragic killing happened. So the authorities are clearly looking at this network. And, you know, military and intelligence officials are describing it as an insurgency. So it's a very serious effort that these agitators are now putting forward.
That's very good information. Azra, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu.
All right, guys, we got to have a serious conversation because I've been saying this for a while about the Democratic Socialists of America. Zoran Madani, AOC, may God have mercy on their souls because they are not for this country. They're not for a normal United States of America. Bernie Sanders is just a small pie. I think the more we're going to see these Democratic Socialists take power is the more we're going to see a moral decay within our society. Now, according to the reporting, this network included organizations like the People's Forum, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and their propaganda outlet known as Breakthrough News. And here's where it gets very serious. All of these organizations are allegedly funded by a guy named Neville Roy Sigmund or Sigham. He's an American-born billionaire currently living in Shanghai. Now, congressional leaders are now investigating him for allegedly interfering with U.S. domestic policies. So I want that to sink in for a moment, guys, because we have foreign-based money now. We have an ideological networks. We have coordinated street actions, encrypted communications. We're not talking about peaceful protests no more. We're talking about signal chats being used to move rapid responders. We're talking about a message allegedly sending out claiming ICE agents were at a donut shop, of all places, telling people to descend on that particular location. Shortly after that message circulated, a tragedy ended up happening and somebody ended up getting his life taken. See, now the military and intelligence officials aren't mentioning words very easily. They're calling this what looks like an insurgent style network operating inside the United States of America. And I've been saying this for a while. They're targeting federal agencies and causing mass chaos, and they're utilizing that as a weapon. And here's the key part: this isn't being brushed off anymore. Kash Patel has announced that there's going to be an investigation into these networks. See, the authorities are actively looking at whether these actions cross the line from activism into criminal coordination and insurgency against the United States of America. Because once you're tracking agents and you're directing crowds in real time and deliberately escalating confrontations, you're no longer protesting policy. You are interfering with federal enforcement of law. You're interfering with our domestic policies. And you are also endangering the lives of those that you put out there. So when you are encouraging people to arm themselves to confront ICE, you're encouraging people to use their vehicles as weapons. You get everyday Americans who would normally never do this if they weren't brain rotted with the reckless rhetoric, they wouldn't have been killed. So what we're witnessing right now isn't a foreign army landing on our shores, because that will obviously end deadly for them. It is something that's far more dangerous. This is an internal attack on the United States of America being carried out through ideology, coordination, and manipulation rather than missiles and tanks. Because the enemy realizes they can't overtake us militarily. So they're going to try to create moral decay within our inner borders. And when organized networks openly describe the United States as the umpire, and they coordinate this harassment of federal agents, they share real-time locations, they dox these agents, and they are receiving funding that are tied to foreign interests, this is no longer a dissent. This is a subversion. History teaches us that nations rarely fall from external invasion alone. They collapse from internal actors working to undermine the trust in our institutions. They normalize this chaos and they turn tragedy into propaganda. So you look when Renee Good was killed, when Alex Preedy was killed, immediately these people are martyred. Innocent, unarmed Americans were killed. That was the rhetoric that they pushed. And that's why I tell you guys, and I pause you guys for a second, because at the end of the day, take a look at the entirety of the picture. Renee hit that federal agent. Should the federal agent been in front of the vehicle? We could debate that all day. I personally think he shouldn't have been, but I don't think he had the knowledge that she was going to drive forward and hit him. Now, Alex Preedy brought a pistol to a peaceful protest with 2 extra clips allegedly, and it's alleged still that he didn't have his ID with him. When they are consuming all this reckless rhetoric, it gets people killed. But then they turn it into a propaganda machine to influence the next people, to influence the next person that is alone, the next person who is an outsider who feels like their voices are not being heard. So that's exactly what we're seeing here. These are agitations being framed as activism. The disorder is being sold as justice, and violence is being excused as resistance. See, this isn't about silence and free speech. This is about recognizing that line between peaceful protest and organized destabilization of our society. See, a society that refuses to confront the internal threats in the name of political comfort eventually loses the very freedoms it claims to protect. See, the question isn't whether America is under attack from within. The real question is whether we're still willing to defend the truth before it's too late. And that's straight facts. So here's my challenge to you people, my audience. If this were any other ideology, if this was any other network, if this was happening in any other country, we wouldn't hesitate to call it what it is. And the real danger isn't disagreement. Listen, we could disagree. We could agree to disagree respectfully all the time. The real danger here is organized deception, foreign funded influences, and coordinated street violence dressed up as justice. So you got to ask yourself, ask yourselves a very serious question. Why are these groups being protected? Why are they being funded? And why are these funders really being discussed? And why does accountability only seems to come after someone is dead? Why did it take Renee Good? Why did it take Renee Good and Alex Preedy to lose their life because of that countless reckless rhetoric that they absorbed in their minds to think they're going to be heroes by trying to kill federal agents? Now, Renee, we can say that with, but Alex is still a little cautious ground. We don't know his full intent. We weren't there in his head. There is obviously videos coming out showing him being a very violent agitator days prior. But we really don't know. Was he really there with his gun? And if he did have the 2 extra clips, was he really there to cause mass carnage? We don't know. But as a possibility. You guys got to understand and start asking the bigger questions. Is our freedom worth consuming reckless rhetoric? Because at the end of the day, the more you guys consume that reckless rhetoric without doing your own due diligence, like what I do here, I will not report on something. For example, there is this article that came out about maybe Alex Preedy's father warning his son not to do nothing bad. I have yet to confirm that, and I have yet to touch on it, because if I can't base it in truth, I do not want to touch it. And if I do touch something based on what's out there already, and it comes out it wasn't true, I will readdress that and correct myself. That's being accountable and honest with yourself. But if you believe that truth matters, share this episode with as many people as you can. If you believe that the law still matters, speak up. And if you believe that America shouldn't be destabilized from within, stay informed and stay grounded in truth. This is Real Talk with Mr. Ghost, facts over feelings. And listen, I'm going to see you guys in the next one. God bless you guys. May God save our nation.